znači gleda me, ja gledam nju, ona gleda mene, ja gledam nju, ona gleda mene, znači strašno. I sad ne znam šta da radim, ne znam šta da mu kažem, zato što znam da ga je prevarila. Ajde, ja.
Look around you. Take a good hard look. There's nothing but fresh parkland here. A great place to have a picnic or play ball with kids. A place to bask in the sun and indulge yourself in some Stephen King or John Grisham. A chance to kick back and say, wow, this is the life. But Western Sydney wasn't always this friendly. In the last decade, there have been over 700 trolley-related deaths in Australia. Western Sydney was in crisis. But in 2006, it was an Australian sheep farmer named Joel Anderson and a Canadian performing arts student named Brent Nichols that would save our country from almost certain demise.
I was 21 years old when I first left Canada, and I was at a rough point in my life. As a young aspiring actor/musician, I ended up landing a role in a children's television show called Brent and Billy's Super Sing-Along Sundays. The program would air for an hour every Sunday, and me and an old college friend, Billy Goldman, would entertain child audiences around the country with 2 guitars and a whole lot of spirit.
Hey kids, I'm here to tell ya about a place that is carefree,
Where you can have fun and be happy and sing along with me and Billy. 'Cause
there'll be a lot of fun, there'll be a lot of fun, there'll be a lot of fun. Yeah! There'll be a lot.
Unfortunately, the show was deemed to be a little too confronting. Whatever that means.
It meant that children at a very young age were beginning to question the sexual orientation of Brent and Billy. The show was cancelled.
I tried to get more work after that, but no one would have me. So I packed up my guitar and headed to Australia. It was a place to start fresh, and at the time, it just felt so right.
Joel was living a different life in Australia. His parents were now both deceased and had left him the family sheep farm where he lived with his fiancée. Although times were tough and it was getting harder and harder to pay taxes on the farm, he was in love, and that was all he needed. Until he found out that his fiancée was sleeping around with Latin television reporter Daniel Garcia.
I guess you could say that I drifted into a bit of a dark place after that. Started drinking a lot. Had to sell the farm because it brought back too many painful memories. Sluts. I eventually realised I just had to get my life back together and, find another way of putting food on the table.
Joel was in fact stealing food off other people's tables in order to accomplish this goal.
Hey, what are you doing? Get out! Get out! I'll catch you! I'll get you!
Meanwhile, Brent was having the time of his life in Australia, and he made sure that he saw all the sights.
Needless to say, my bank account was getting a little too low at that point. And so after a good 4 months of traveling, I felt it was time to settle down. I found a nice apartment in a place called Kingswood.
Joel, on the other hand, had finally got a real job of his own as a door-to-door mobile phone salesman, and on his 5th week on the job, he approached Brent's door. At this time, Brent had absolutely no interest or money to put towards a mobile phone, but he was lonely and invited the stranger to come into his home.
I remember meeting Brent for the first time. We talked for ages and, we just had a lot in common. I was living out of my car, selling phones. Brent was living out of an empty apartment, living off a box of stale Cheerios. It seemed like neither of us had a friend in the world.
That night I let Joel sleep on the floor. And a couple of days later we bought a couch. 3 months later, he was still there. And so we cleared all the rats out of the spare room to give Joel a permanent place to live. We slowly started to find ways of making money to give us a very minimal income. But Joel was persistent. He felt like we just needed one good opportunity to strike it rich. It seemed like he always had one get-rich-quick scheme or another up his sleeve. But most of them involved selling something illegal on eBay. And neither of us knew how to use eBay, let alone how to get our hands on some decent horse tranquilizers. So we just ended up job hunting for what seemed to be an eternity, until one day, something extraordinary happened.
It was a fine spring day. Sun was out, birds were singing, all that trash. Brent and myself were heading back from the city after another fruitless day of job hunting. We're both in a pretty miserable mood.
What was that?
It sounded sort of screamy.
Yeah, it did. Okay.
Little did we know, something would happen that day. Something that would change our lives forever. Let's go. He's dead, man.
How does something like this happen? Dude, there's something in there.
Let's get out of here.
We didn't waste any time after the attack. After realizing we had just narrowly escaped with our lives, we went to the one man who we hoped could help us with this particular situation.
That man was Gus Reinhold, the Australian Minister for Delinquent Trolleys.
Gus had some interesting things to say. He told us that lately, for whatever reason, there had been several accounts of people getting attacked by trolleys. He also said it was both damaging his professional reputation and costing people their lives. He went on to say that if someone were to take responsibility and bring these trolleys to justice, that he would offer a $50 reward for every trolley. And that right there was all we needed to hear.